What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back to another Four Corners video courtesy of awesemo.com. And today, things are going to change pretty fast, possibly as I'm recording this, because I'm getting notifications of trades that are going on right now. It is the NBA trade deadline. So this slate in particular is going to be more chaotic than usual. So make sure to like the video now to give support in these trying times. Leave a comment down below. Tell me about which trade's been your favorite so far, and I'll get into all the action that you need to know for tonight's big slate in front of us. The first corner up involves a team who's been probably the most involved in trade talks, at least on a national stage, the Los Angeles Lakers visiting the Boston Celtics. Now, this game has a 226.5 combined total, which is tied for the second highest on the slate. This is not a slate which Vegas expects to have a ton of points going on, so we're going to have to pick and choose our games wisely, and this is one that does jump out as having a decent opportunity. The question right now, as I'm recording this, is whether or not everybody on the Lakers will actually be on the team by the time that the game rolls around today. It's currently looking like there isn't going to be a big Anthony Davis trade, but who knows? We'll see what the future holds in the next few hours. Either way, this seems like a spot for me where LeBron James is going to have to be a one-man show. He's obviously had some success versus Boston last year. Really did everything he could with the Cavs to keep him in games, give him a shot to make the NBA Finals, which of course they did do before being completely blown off the floor. LeBron's gonna have to do the same today, and I think in particular with how the Lakers have looked, a lot of malaise setting in because of these trade rumors hanging over them. LeBron's gonna have to force a lot of the action here and do everything he can to give the Lakers a win on the road. Rajon Rondo has been one of the few Lakers who's looked pretty engaged still despite the trade rumors, and he's also had a pretty torrid history versus Boston. Rondo has only missed value in 3 out of 11 games since leaving Boston, and 2 of which were due to getting 23 minutes or less. So you know with Rondo is a very spiteful human being, so he's heading into Boston again in a spot where he's really going to have to drive a lot of ball movement action in order to give the Lakers a shot to hang in this one. So I like Rondo here. I like him both as a spiteful human being and as a fantasy NBA player tonight. One of the most bandied about names and trade rumors for the Lakers is Kyle Kuzma. He's also suffering from some hip issues, but I think he's a guy with where his price is on DraftKings, a very respectable 5,400. He can shoot the team into the game, keep this game close. I think he's a guy who can transcend matchup if the shots are going his way. I like him more than Brandon Ingram, who's really a more of a ball-dominant guard, whereas Kuzma can get a shot going. His health is a risk, the trade rumors are a risk, but I think if he's still on a team after the deadline passes, he'll be motivated and he'll come out firing here versus the Celtics team, who can give some scores up versus players who are competent enough to actually score. Kyrie Irving and Al Horford look like rock-solid plays to me, but only if the Lakers can stay in the game. So I think if you're going to play either of those guys or both, you're going to want to have some Lakers exposure on the other side, some guys who are going to exceed value like LeBron, maybe a Rajon Rondo, or maybe Kuzma, some guys who really are going to have to put up the scoring in order to stay in this game versus the Celtics. And Kyrie himself has been over 60 fantasy points in 4 out of his last 6 games. Pretty decent outlay here for him in a pace-up spot versus the Lakers. Lakers a decent defensive team, but not really going to be able to keep up with Kyrie Irving, especially with Lonzo Ball sidelined. And also Al Horford really been pushing the rebounding recently versus the Lakers squad, who's pretty bad inside. If Horford is seeing 4 quarters of run, he could have a pretty big outlier day. Next corner I want to hit on is a game with the Grizzlies visiting the Thunder, a game in which the Thunder are a 14-point favorite at home. The question here for the Grizzlies is this team a trade deadline risk or perhaps a trade deadline opportunity, as you can see by the emoji that I've put in there. Marc Gasol is being shipped out of town to Toronto, so he is off the table, as is JaMychal Green and Garrett Temple. Both guys were questionable to play anyway. So this team is going to have a lot of minutes left behind and also a lot of usage. And as we saw last game, Mike Conley and Justin Holiday are going to soak up a lot of that usage left behind. They're also going to be the guys who are single-handedly responsible for keeping the Grizzlies in this game if they are able to hang in there. With the way Conley has played recently, over 34% usage in that last game for just the 3rd time this year. Holiday over 13 shots his last 3 games. I think there's a pretty big opportunity for these guys to score and hang in this game with the Thunder. And again, if you're going to be playing those guys, it might be a bit of a contrarian option to stack this game up as though the Grizzlies can hang in there with a really big runaway team like the Thunder. Yvonne Robb is currently projected to be one of the highest owned players on the slate at about 20% projected ownership. The number could rise a bit throughout the day, though his price being up may mitigate that a little bit here. I think there's some risk going against Steven Adams, but I like what I've seen from Robb. He's been very active. As I just mentioned, there's a ton of usage to go around, a ton of rebounding opportunity as well. He's going to have to fight versus Adams. There's no question about that, but I think he's in a good spot, and I really like what I've seen from him both this year and last year when he filled in for Marc Gasol. Jaren Jackson is a guy who's going to benefit quite a bit from Marc Gasol's absence, as well as the trade of JaMychal Green to the Clippers. So I think you're going to see Jackson continue to get the 38 minutes that he got last game, at least until Jonas Valanciunas joins town in the trade for Gasol. But Jaren Jackson did put up 38 minutes as well as 41.5 fantasy points in that last game, and he only shot 6 for 14. So even though he's still a foul risk, Jaren Jackson is going to get the opportunity to do some big things here, and I like him in the spot, though, again, Steven Adams is going to be a problem for both him and Ivan Rabb. I'd also keep a close eye on Joakim Noah's status closer to lock. He also is a trade risk, but he's currently questionable with an injury. If he does play, he's going to have a decent shot at picking up some minutes, and especially picking up minutes if Jaren Jackson gets himself into the foul trouble, which has haunted him for most of his rookie year. And on the other side, I've mentioned this in quite a bit of content I've done. I love the Thunder anytime they can stay close in a game. So if I'm going to play this game as though the Grizzlies can hang in there until at least the tail end of the fourth quarter before that 14-point Vegas spread kicks in, I'd want to play Paul George and I want to play Russell Westbrook, because I think a lot of people won't be on them today. They're both currently projected for under 20% ownership. So if this game does have more scoring and the Grizzlies did play with more pace in that last game without Marc Gasol, I think this could be a spot that's beneficial that a lot of people will be overlooking from a game stack perspective. Next corner I'm going to hit on is a game with a 226.5 total, one that represents a 3.3 point boost on Portland's season average. Damian Lillard currently projects for 26% ownership according to our projections at Osmo.com, and he looks like a fine play here. His price is at a pretty reasonable range. I have no reason to not want to match the field on that ownership just in case he does have an outlier day. But one pivot I like quite a bit here is CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum's been over 41.5 fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games, and he's also been over 61.5 in one of those, which admittedly was a game versus Atlanta. So with his usage rate up over 30% recently, up from about 25.8% on the year, CJ McCollum has been getting a lot more run, a lot more shots, a lot more opportunities. He's also shown some more assist upside, and this has been without staggering minutes with Dame Lillard. So it's certainly possible that shifts back, but it seems like there might be a concerted effort here to get CJ McCollum more looks, get him more involved in the offense, and I think that could certainly have some value here in this matchup for Portland. Yusuf Nurkic is a guy who could be a decent pivot to the backcourt scoring that people are expecting here. Both McCollum and Lillard will likely have more ownership than Nurkic. There is some concern with Nurkic. He's been losing minutes to Myers Leonard recently, who had a big game in the one start when Nurkic went out. I think it's a tough spot for Nurkic because his minutes can be squeezed. His usage is being squeezed by the guards. There's definitely some risk there, but if we're trying to just make a pivot and try to capture the Blazers scoring with somebody other than the chalkier plays of McCollum and Lillard, I think Nurkic is a fine play, just one who comes with a bit of risk. And for the Spurs, LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan are back after resting last game in that debacle effort for the Spurs versus Golden State. Aldridge has not shown a particularly big eye for revenge versus his former team in Portland, but he's in a good spot. It's just a good matchup for him. His usage has been there. He's been very efficient with his scoring recently. I think he's a fine play, and I prefer him slightly to DeRozan, who's looked a little bit gimpy. He returned to form for the most part last game, but his usage rate is down a little bit. He worries me, and I'd rather just take a guy at a similar price than Aldridge on his team, who I feel more comfortable with given the matchup. The last corner I want to hit on, which it was a tough choice because I do like the Minnesota-Orlando game, and there are some things to consider about the Toronto-Atlanta game as well, given that now we have some news about the trades and some bodies that are missing. But overall, I think this game with the Clippers and the Pacers is one to look at. This game with the Clippers and the Pacers has a 217-point total, which is not great, but it does represent a 3.1 point boost for Indiana. The big thing that I'm looking at here is the Tobias Harris trade and how it's going to affect the rotations for the Clippers. One guy who's really benefited from Harris being out of the lineup is Lou Williams. Lou Williams has put up 1.45 fantasy points per minute with Tobias out of the lineup, which is up from 1.24 on the year. Montrezl Harrell as well has put up 1.27 fantasy points per minute, which is up from 1.18 on the year. So you're going to see some usage left behind, and for Harrell, you're probably going to see a few extra minutes because of Harris being out of the lineup. Danilo Gallinari is expected back in the rotation today, and he's coming back from some back issues. How many times can you say the word back for one guy in one sentence? We'll find out. But Danilo Gallinari is going to pick up some of that usage that Tobias Harris leaves behind. I think he looks like a fine play here, though I do prefer Lou and Montrez by a pretty decent margin. Avery Bradley has been traded also as of writing this video, and he's going to be headed to Memphis to help out their team, who definitely needed more defensive guys out there, not more scoring. Of course not. Why would you have that? But this could mean more run for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which is one of the goals of the Clippers season. He's been getting minutes, but he has been encumbered a little bit by some of the backcourt logjam. So hopefully this gives him some more run. It's also probably going to mean some more run for Sindarius Thornwell, which means literally nothing to anybody involved in anything at all in basketball. On the Indiana side, Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis have really been doing a great job recently. They've soaked up a good amount of the usage that the absence of Victor Oladipo has left behind. They've also just been very efficient on the boards, and versus a Clippers team who's been bad and only going to get worse with the trades they've made, this seems like a really nice spot for Turner and also for Sabonis. You know, I don't know that you can play them together because they do cut into each other's minutes, but both guys look good here, and I would play them in lineups, but probably independently of one another. Thad Young and Bojan Bogdanovic have been two guys who benefited quite a bit as well from Victor Oladipo being out. Thad Young shooting about 12 times per game now. Bojan Bogdanovic shooting about 17 times per game. Obviously, this means a pretty big opportunity here in a pace-up spot versus the Clippers, who are also getting pretty weak defensively with the absence of Avery Bradley in the lineup now. I think you're going to want some exposure to these guys. And again, I think this is a pretty appealing game stack situation. Tyreek Evans and Darren Collison interest me the least on the side. Tyreek Evans just not getting a lot of usage. Collison as well, still having some assist upside, but not really shooting much for himself. It's a pace-up spot, so I have no problem with either guy, especially in a game stack scenario. But they both come with a little bit of risk for me. And I don't know, I'd rather just have my ownership on the other guys because I feel a little more confident in their potential versus the Clippers. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on today's chaotic, very Joker, Dark Knight friendly NBA slate. Chaos all over. Let's burn a giant stack of money tonight. Make sure to like this video and leave a comment down below. And of course, check the promo code I'm going to drop in here. That promo code Switch and Hedge will give you 50% off of your first month at Awesemo.com. Get all of the ownership projections that I discuss here, rankings from Awesemo as the top player in the world, as well as projections from Josh Engelman. You just plug them right into Fantasy Cruncher, get your lineups right. So go ahead, check that promo code I'm dropping in here right now. And I'll be back in soon with another Four Corners video, hopefully one that has less chaos in the air. So good luck.